that did sound rather RuPaul Drag Race, didn't it? Hello, you lovely, lovely listeners, and welcome to the Psychic Explorer. This episode, which is the first of 2 October spooky season episodes, welcome along. I'm really looking forward to this. But first of all, happy birthday to me. No, not me, Matt, but to the Psychic Explorer. I have reached a whole year of doing this, and I know there was a slight hiatus at the beginning of the year. However, I started in October 2024, and we are already in October 2025. Thank goodness I am not ill like I was when I first started. I don't have that hacking cough. I'm talking to you from my back bedroom, and it is blowy, it is rainy, it is cold, it is autumn. Yes, it is my favourite time of year. I absolutely adore autumn. And tomorrow is the first Sunday in October, which means only one thing in my house: pumpkin picking. I love it. It is an annual tradition in my household where we go out, we go to the local farmer where they've got loads and loads of pumpkins growing in the fields, and we go and pick them and we bring them back. And invariably, Simon always tells me that I've got far too many, but of course you can never have too many pumpkins for the front house. And we decorate the front doorstep and we decorate the house in autumnal colours. It's just, I love it. We actually did a road trip. My word, yeah. It would have been 10 years ago. We went to New England and we flew into New York, went up to Connecticut, hired a car from there, and we went all around New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts. We even managed to make it up to Montreal for a couple of nights, which, beautiful, absolutely stunning. But we were really inspired by the American take on Halloween, or Samhain, as the pagans and the Celts called it around my way. But growing up in this country, it's fair to say that American culture is just ingrained in what we see and what we watch. And I grew up watching all things American, and I never really grew. I always thought that Americans were a bit OT, or at least I thought the portrayal of how they did Halloween was OTT, and I thought, no way can it possibly be like that. But we went to New England 10 years ago to see the autumn colours, and we were there, not for Halloween, but for the build-up for it. And let me tell you, these beautiful, quintessentially New English old villages and old towns, you just can't make it up. The amount of colour, the amount of cheer, the chrysanthemums everywhere. The I don't know why they call it apple cider, because I'm not sure what else cider is if it's not apples. But apple cider is hand pressed. And I remember we went to the Vermont country store, and honestly, if you get a chance to get a chance to see it, then I thoroughly recommend it. And we came back, and I remember where we lived before. We lived in this little new build cul-de-sac, and it was the house we were living in, we were renting just before we bought this house. And we were back just in time for Halloween. So I went to the local animal supply shop, where I got myself a small bale of straw or two, whacked that outside the front door, made like a couple of stacks of these straw bales, got as many pumpkins as I could, went to the shops, got massive bunches of chrysanthemums, and I just decorated our doorstep, and it looked amazing. And when Halloween came, I had changed the outside light to a green light, and there were all these trick-or-treaters going around. And Simon said that he drove home, and as he turned the corner onto our little cul-de-sac and parked up, he said he was shocked because our front door was just mobbed by children. No one else, they weren't going anywhere else, but all these local kids were mobbing our front door for trick or treat, and I loved it. I was just opening the door, and the doorbell was going every 5 seconds. And I had to run to the shop. I had to run to the co-op to go and get some more sweets because we run out. But yeah, I love it. I think this time of year is so magical. It's so atmospheric. I almost prefer it to Christmas, if I'm honest. It means more. It has more atmosphere, I think. However, Halloween and this spooky season is known for ghosts. It's known for horror films. It's known for bad energies and bad spirits. And this is something I know very little about. I have thought about this, and I thought about, well, if I'm channeling, love and, the cliche message when you channel a message for a sitter is your loved ones are sending you love, your loved ones are really proud of you, they're really proud and happy with what you're doing, and that sort of thing, which is, as it comes through, that's how I see it, and that's true as to how I see it. But I do often think to myself, well, if it's all positive, there must be a negative. There must be an opposite, because my I don't know if it's my belief or my way of seeing the world is that it's made of vibration, and a vibration is ups and downs. It's ins and outs. It's loud and quiet, hot and cold. So by that law, does that mean that with the good, there's also the bad or the evil? I don't know. But Jono Angelo, my guest today, believes he does know. Jono is someone who has done many paranormal investigations. And when he joined the circle that I go to every Wednesday evening, and when Jono came, he came with someone else, Jules, and you will meet Jules in a future episode. But when they came, Nicola came up to me and said, Matt, Jono and Jules, they do paranormal investigations. You should get them onto your podcast. And I was like, all right, Nicola, stop pimping them out. But I didn't really think too much of it. But I was planning my October episodes, and I thought, what can I do an episode on that I don't know much about? And I had done an interview with someone else, and that recording is coming out, I think, in about February time. And they have mentioned something in their episodes about negative entities. And I said, oh, I don't really know. I mean, that doesn't really, I've not really had any experience of that. And she signposted me to some podcasters and some people to look at and to do some reading up on, which I was really grateful for. But I said I said in the interview, I said in the episode, not really anything I have any experience with. And I thought, well, let's do that. Let's talk to someone who has got experience. And Jono has been on many investigations. And I'm really looking forward for you to hear his experiences. Now, I will caveat this, that he says some stuff which, again, still at the moment doesn't necessarily resonate with me, but that does not mean it's untrue, or it doesn't mean that I'm going to poo-poo it. I'm here to hear it all. And I'm sort of treating this podcast as a bit of a pick and mix. You take what you like and you leave what you don't. And I was really interested to speak to Jono. So he does mention a story which he was saying that when he was doing a house clearance, he came into contact with this entity. And he goes into more detail when he talks about it, but he said they helped this entity cross over, but that he didn't think that they went up. Now, that implies that there is a down. Again, at the moment with me, that doesn't necessarily resonate with me, but I'm not going to cut that out. I'm not going to edit that out, because it might resonate with you. And this is what this podcast is all about. These episodes are all about giving you a flavour of other people's experience so that you can say, yeah, I like that, or no, not sure about that. And at least you get to hear other people's points of view. Right, enough of me rambling at you for almost 9 minutes now. Let's get to the show. Here is Jono Angelo talking about paranormal investigations and negative energies. Don't get too scared, but enjoy. Jono Angelo, welcome to the Psychic Explorer podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Can I just say, this podcast has been going for a year now, a year this October, so my podcast birthday. And you are my very first boy guest. So thank you. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm not going to make any bones about it. We go to the same circle, and as all of my guests, well, most of my guests so far have been in our circle. You joined about, in my mind, it's only about 6 months ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Probably April time, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. And it very soon became apparent that you knew your stuff. And Nicola said to me, "Oh, that Jono over there, he does paranormal investigations, and he'd be really good to have on your podcast." But you do paranormal investigations, and I have a lot of questions about this. So before we get started, I guess I want to just ask, because I will go through the questions like how you got drawn into this and all this sort of stuff. What is your background? How did you start on your psychic journey?
I mean, my earliest memories were probably when I was 2 or 3 years old, laying in bed at night and noticing that I was floating above my body. And I guess, I didn't really know what it was at the time, but the ceiling was where my nose was. That's kind of the impression that I was getting. So I had things like that. There were other occasions when, I would go to the end of the bed and it was like this, it was this bizarre kind of Narnia thing where it went into another world. I still sort of see it in my mind's eye now as we talk about it, but those sort of things, there were monsters under the bed that obviously weren't there when my dad would come, and this would be in 8 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning. I would see these things under my bed, but again, not really knowing what they were. And then there was an occasion, I don't remember this so well, but probably would have been when I was about 5, I would say. It was a Sunday. We'd been to the garden centre or something like that with my family. And we went back to my grandma's house, and she'd just moved into this new to her council bungalow. And I turned around and said, "Oh, who's that lady in your kitchen window?" And obviously there was nobody there. But from what I gathered, the lady that lived in that property beforehand had died in that property. I've kind of got a vague memory of that, but again, I don't know if it's like a memory that's been created from the story I've been told. So that was the early days, I guess. And then fast forward to 2004, I had a family holiday in Australia. I had my very first reading, and the lady that I went to see, the psychic medium, she said, you're very, very psychic, you're very sensitive, you should develop. And obviously this got me very excited because, I've always been interested in ghosts. I remember permanently borrowing the Hamlin Book of Ghosts from the school library and thinking, why can't I be psychic? And reading that book continuously for years. In fact, I have still got it. But so 2004, she said I was highly psychic, and then fast forward a bit more, I started seeing this really wonderful lady. I used to go around to her house, pay her a few quid. She would sit smoking cigarettes all night. There would be Dark Side of the Moon playing on the stereo quite loud, box of wine on the sideboard. That's the kind of scene that we're going for. She was kind of the first person that, I guess, taught me meditation, taught me to tune in. I met my spirit guide for the first time, although at the time I didn't know it was a spirit guide. I actually thought it was St. Peter because of the way that it presented. And then I changed jobs. I couldn't go over there anymore. And then I started ghost hunting. And that's kind of, I guess, where it all started.
So it sounds to me that unlike my situation, my story, where there's a catalyst that happens and then suddenly, boom, this thing opens up to me. This opened up to you from a very young age. And it sounds like maybe gradually, but you were definitely in touch with something from a young age. So would you class yourself, and I don't know if this is a taboo phrase to use in our community, I suppose, but a natural psychic?
I don't know. For me, this really has been a slow burn. This hasn't been waking up and all of a sudden, I've got Harry and Martha standing at the end of the bed wanting to pass on a message to their daughter Rebecca. Quite the contrary, really. But my natural gift is healing. That's my natural gift, and it wasn't until probably very, very recently, and I mean in the last couple of years, that I realised I was claircognient. So everything I've learned sitting in circles since probably 2007 or 2008, something like that, That's why it was so difficult. Why my journey was so challenging, because I thought I was clairvoyant predominantly, and that just wasn't the case. People would say, well, just ask for the next bit of information. And I'm thinking, well, of course I'm asking for the next piece of information, and nothing is coming. So that I always found really frustrating. But more recently, I found that I'm claircognient, and therefore the reason why I'm back in circle is because I'm having to relearn everything I've ever known, because I don't work in the way that I thought I did. So it's now trying to adjust, how I work so that I'm using that clairvoyance and the psychic connection and whatever else, as well as my main kind of claircognience. So it's been a bit tricky trying to balance that and find my feet with that.
I really love what you're saying there, because even though this opened up to you from a very young age, I think the stereotype is that if that happens to someone, if they are open from a very young age and they're experiencing these things, they are naturally going to be, and forgive me for saying this, but naturally going to be an expert, and it's naturally going to be really good at it from day one. And what you're saying there is actually, it still takes practice for you. It still takes understanding the different rhythms and how this works for you, because what works for you is very different to what will work for me, what will work for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, what we have to remember is this is like learning a new language, but the language isn't French or German or another language that's fairly similar to English. This is like learning Cantonese. It's very different. The energies are different to our own, although they are similar. So this is a massive journey for the vast majority of people, and I think that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because I want it to be really accessible for people. I want them to feel as if, I'm not some special person. I'm just a normal chap who happens to work for the NHS, who can talk to dead people, essentially, for want of a better phrase. And it does take work. It does take dedication. But if you do put the work in, you will start to see results. So to anybody who's listening that wants to develop, thinks they've got skills, you should do it.
Well, on that note, you are here this evening to talk about paranormal investigations. So my first proper question to you, Jono, tonight is, what first drew you into investigating the paranormal? And part of the question here is, were you more of a believer or a skeptic, or were you in between? But I presume from your history and what you were just saying there, that you were a believer beforehand.
Yeah, I've always been a believer. I've always been really fascinated with the paranormal. And, obviously that interest was propelled by borrowing the Hamlin Book of Ghosts. I just loved all the stories. And then obviously having watched Most Haunted, really loving that programme. I loved Derek Acora, the medium on there, and that's what I liked about that program, the fact that they did an investigation. They had a psychic medium on there who was very good. I know, there have been things in the press about him, but I have met Derek Acora, and I thought he was great. He had a great energy, really nice bloke. His evidence was excellent at the thing that I went to. I don't know, it just put me into that kind of trajectory. It was the easiest way to do all that, because at the time, although I'd been told that I was psychic, they didn't have really any kind of concept of how to access that or to develop it. So, that's kind of what got me into the paranormal stuff.
Was there a catalyst? Was there something that actually brought you to it?
No, I don't think there was. It was just something that I'd always been interested in, and an opportunity arose to. In fact, my friend Vicky said that there was going to be a local public event, and was I interested in going? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we bought our tickets. We went along to this particular event, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was with people that were interested in the same thing. It was all very new. It was all very exciting. It was scary as well, because we were in an old building in Norwich, and there was activity.
What was that like? What was your first paranormal investigation like?
So a particular moment I recall. We sat in, I'll call it an auditorium for want of a better word, but we sat in this auditorium in a circle on chairs in the dark. And I think we must have been doing some sort of seance or something. I mean, it's a long time ago, and I can't fully remember. But what I do remember is seeing this mist manifest in the dark. I could see it, but I guess kind of psychically as well as with my eyes. And a face appeared in the mist, in the smoke, which really made me jump, to be honest with you. I obviously mentioned it to a person that I was sat next to, who you also know. It was like, gosh, things do really happen when you go on a ghost hunt. So I was totally hooked. It was, I don't know, it just bamboozled me, and it was just so exciting.
An adrenaline high.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because when you're watching things like Most Haunted or any of the other programs on the telly, I was quite young at the time, you think, okay, yeah, I get that these things do exist, but, what's the likelihood of me actually being able to experience that? And on my first paranormal investigation, I did. So I was like, I have to do more of this. And yeah, we did. We went to several events.
All right, so you went to your first investigation. Why were you interested? Was it the confirmation of what you felt? Was it the proof side of it? Was it the making contact with another entity? Why?
That is really difficult to answer because, I don't know, it's just like, to me, it's like asking me, well, why do you like oranges? Well, I just do, It was just something that, I guess it just resonated with me. It was something that, it's the unknown, isn't it? It's like UFOs. You think about UFOs, it's kind of not of this world. And I'm just really, my brain is really intrigued about things that aren't normal. Probably because I'm not normal. But, anything that's kind of out of the ordinary, something that's just not mundane. I just have so much interest in it. I want to find out more. I want to know all about it. And the paranormal was just one of those things. So I can't really answer it in that,
that black and white.
Yeah, it's not black and white for me. It's just something that, I don't know, just so incredibly interested in it.
How many do you think you've done over the years?
It's hard to say, but we did them for years and years and years, so probably not as many as 100, but certainly getting towards that figure, I would say.
Wow. Okay. No, that's a lot. That is a lot. That's 100 more than me. So
yeah.
that's good. And so you've done that many. But how have your investigations shaped or changed your personal belief systems?
I suppose the only thing it really has done is change my perspective, because when I first started doing these things, I did find it scary, although it's like super interested. But I think because I've been doing it for a number of years now, I've learned a lot about what these different things are. And naturally you do that. You come across things in the early days that really are frightening, but you do a bit of research, it happens again, you do a bit more research, and then once you understand something, it's no longer frightening, I think. So in the vast majority of interactions I've had, they are just people that have walked this earth before. They've got a story. They might have had a family. They might have a message that they're trying to get across. They just want to be heard and understood. So I do still believe in God, and obviously through the years that belief has strengthened. It hasn't really changed my faith in any way. Again, another tricky question, a very good question, Matt, but
you're welcome.
I wouldn't say it hasn't really changed my personal belief system, because I've always believed in those things. Although, having said that, because I am quite scientific in mind, science was always my strongest subject at school, so I always want to test it. I'll be the first person to debunk something if I can, because at the end of the day, the evidence you're getting, you want that to be tangible. You want it to be perfect. What's the point in just accepting everything as paranormal? Because in most cases, it isn't.
I'm glad you said that, because I will come on to that in a moment. You mentioned earlier on that there was some controversy around Derek Acorah, and for those who don't know, Derek Acorah was a very well-known medium on his TV show Most Haunted. And I think the controversy was something along the lines of, he came out with this name, and actually this name was an anagram of Derek Acorah is a fraud.
Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it?
That's what I remember it being.
Yeah.
It was, something like that. And the producers had basically fed him this name. And he went in saying, oh, it's this person, and it was like this anagram. So I'm glad that you are saying that scientific, or that you approach this with a scientific base. But I wonder also, before we get to that question, have you ever had a specific experience that directly challenged what you thought you knew? You said that you went into situations where it scared you, you went away, did some research, you saw or you encountered that thing again, and throughout those different interactions with that thing, whatever that thing is, you understood it more. So have you ever had an experience that directly challenged what you thought you originally knew?
The group that I'm involved in went to a house in Lowestoft, and there'd been some reported activity in this particular house, but it was like quite negative. It felt dark. Some of the kind of stuff was quite creepy. We had only just started the investigation. We were in a very small bedroom, and it felt different. You walk in the room and it'd feel really heavy. It'd feel oppressive. It had like 2 single, like child-sized beds in it, from what I remember. And as I walked into the room at the bottom of the beds, towards the beds sort of furthest away from the wall, I was stabbed in the side of my stomach. And I mean, I have been pushed before on an investigation, which was a bit alarming at the time, but this was a proper, it felt like I was stabbed in the stomach. So much so, obviously I made a noise and kind of bent over, because it physically felt as if somebody probably stabbed me.
Wow.
And then obviously that feeling, that sensation went away fairly quickly. I invited Jules to come into the room. She's a lady that I work with very closely on these things, and people will hear more about her in due course. The exact same thing happened to her as well. So that was quite interesting, because you hear about people being touched or prodded or pushed. You don't expect it. Anyway, the interesting thing about this, I have to be very sensitive how I talk about this, but it felt as if it was a really negative energy. And when we talk about negative energies, we think about things that are of a lower vibration. I'm not going to mention the words because I don't like to, but the opposite of God and Jesus and all those lovely things, all the light stuff, the opposite of that. So, when you're watching these programs on telly, they're all talking about the big D words, aren't they, etc. And so you sort of think, is it that? Is it that kind of stuff coming in? What it happens to be was a male energy who was unkind to children. I'll put it that way. And this entity was hiding in the basement of this property. Now, it's an old Victorian property with a shop at the bottom. So this is like a three or four story building, really old, and this apartment is 2 or 3 stories. So you've got like the first floor where you've got your kitchen, you've got your lounge, you've got a spare bedroom. Then you move up, you've got more bedrooms and a bathroom, and then you've got like into the attic, you've then got like another big bedroom. Below the actual shop was a cellar, and this entity was hiding in the cellar because we were really struggling to kind of get this thing to move on. We worked out that it was hiding because he was hiding because of what he'd done. He didn't want to come to terms. He didn't want to cross over because he didn't want to, I guess, face judgment for the really disgusting things that had happened. What I learned in that moment was that by enticing him with love, despite what he'd done, it was much easier for him to deal with. He was more willing to come forward. He wasn't hiding, and we got him to essentially cross over. Although where he went, I don't think was up. So.
Oh, you're saying some stuff here, Jono, which is really opening up something which I really want to quiz you more on. And I want to do it in a really respectful way because you know that I am fairly new to all this and I've not formed my belief systems yet about what I do or don't necessarily believe. And I don't know. I've always said, throughout my growing up and throughout my years, I've always said, you'd be really silly to say, yes, something definitely does exist because there's still a slither of you're not quite sure. Equally, you'd be just as arrogant to say, no, it doesn't exist. So I've always sort of lived in that sort of in-between sort of stage.
I guess I was always a bit the same, although I've always believed in the afterlife. I guess because of my years of exposure to various different things, different levels of, vibration, whether it's higher or lower, you start to form a picture in your mind about what you believe because of, you base it on what you've experienced, don't you? So I think paranormal investigating would be a great way for you to start forming those opinions. If you're just doing readings, you're just like sitting on the kind of the psychic or the mediumship vibration, you're really limiting yourself potentially on what you can experience. And I think if we're working in this world, or in this field, we need to expose ourselves to all of the different facets that it has, because that then helps you to develop a really well-rounded, informed feeling or opinion on what's going on. I'll always caveat this. What I'm talking about comes from my opinion. It comes from my experience. I'm certainly no oracle on these things, and there'll be other people that have had completely different experiences doing the same things to myself. So I'm not talking to you saying this is gospel. This is just my experience. This is what I've seen, what I've felt, what I've experienced.
Your interpretation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that for me that makes things much clearer, because I'll tell you one thing. I went to a workshop with a very well-known psychic last year, and it was really good. I've really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and I seemed to get some really good evidence. But we were sat around, and there was this guy who used to be in an old circle that I went to, and he was into house clearances, and he was calling them rescue circles and stuff like that. Okay. And I've always been a bit, not sure how I feel about that. And he said this out, he said this when we were in this workshop with this well-known medium. And he said, I do clearances of spirits, help them move on, and rescue circles. And the medium's face sort of scrunched up and said, that doesn't exist. I'm really sorry, but that doesn't happen.
I disagree.
And this is it. And there was straight away, the tension in the room went straight up. And I was like, this is awkward, because you've got one person who is, like I say, a well-known spiritualist, a well-known medium, and she was saying, no, this definitely does not. He was quite adamant that this sort of stuff did exist, but at the same time, he came out with some really wackadoo ideas during our regular circle, which made me think, that just doesn't resonate with me at the moment.
No, and it's just because he's on a different vibration. The vibration that this chap is on is to do rescue circles. I've done rescue work. I've done a lot of rescue work. I've sat in rescue circles before. It does exist in my experience. It's just that this chap is on a frequency whereby his calling is to do this because that's his way of serving spirit. The person that was saying, no, it doesn't exist, it's just not there. It's not on their vibration at the moment for them to experience that.
So my next question is going to be, and I think this first half is going to be very practical, the ins and outs of this sort of stuff. My next question is going to be, what are they being rescued from? What's the mechanics? What's the practicalities of these people that have died, these souls, these spirits? What's happening to them that's causing them to be stuck?
So basically, I guess to put it in layman's terms, the opportunity for them to cross over has passed, essentially. So, when we die, my belief is that the door opens. There might be somebody to come and collect us, whether that's a loved one or a spirit guide or an angel or whatever. But that door can't stay open indefinitely. And it may be that they choose that they don't at this time want to cross over. They may not even realise that they've died. And especially if they've had a very traumatic death, they may not realise that they've died. They may have unfinished business here. They may have been somebody who's lost a loved one. So, for example, a mother may not cross over because they've lost their child and they're desperately looking for their child. Usually it's based on trauma. So unfinished business, trauma that has not been resolved. And the purpose of a rescue is to communicate with them, to let them know that they have died, that they have passed away, and to convince them, if they want to, you can't force them, they have free will, but to give them the opportunity to cross over. So there are people who are able to show them the light, show them the doorway, to take them through that doorway, to show them love so that they feel that they're able to leave the physical world and go back home, where obviously, in most cases, their loved one is waiting. And what you can do with that, if you are a psychic medium and you're interested in doing this, when you open the doorway for them, most cases the loved one they're looking for is in the light. So that door opens and that you can see that loved one there. So all you've got to do is just guide them to that light, and the rest is they just go quite easily, usually. Sometimes they may want to come back, so you have to convince them that if they want to come back, they can come back in visitation, but actually, really, they would be better off to cross over so they can process the things that have happened to them. They can heal from any traumas that they've had, and then they can ascend and move on and develop as a soul.
Okay, next question. Sorry, I'm using this opportunity, Jono, as an opportunity to just get all these questions I've had running around in my head for the past year or two, thinking, well, surely this is. If you would be so bold and just let me just say something, a theory that I have. So you mentioned a minute ago the D word. You don't want to mention the full word, which I'm intrigued by that in itself. But anyway, about 18 months or so ago, we had some herbs around the house, shall we say.
We're smoking them.
No, we did put them in some chocolate, which and I've always said, whenever I do weed, and this is not an endorsement by anyone to do weed, so I will just put that out there as a disclaimer. If it's illegal in your country, please don't do it. But, you're an adult and not that lot. Whenever I've done it, it takes me to another world. Like literally, suddenly my mind goes, and I seem to understand the universe. And the last time I did it was about 18 months ago. This concept of vibration just came to me. Like everything is a vibration. There's a yin to every yang. And I thought, well, if I take that literally, if there is so many loving spirits out there who watch over us and they do all this sort of stuff, whatever that concept might be, surely there must be a negative as well. But that very rarely gets spoken about unless it's in a horror film sort of setting.
Yeah, absolutely. There is always an opposite. If you have light, there is dark. If you have warmth, you have cold. So there's always an opposite. And the reason why we have that, in my opinion, is to allow us to fully understand, to fully appreciate the extremes. You can't feel pure, true love unless you can also understand and feel hate. Otherwise, it wouldn't necessarily feel like love. It would just feel like, well, it would just feel like nothing in particular. So you need those extremes. You need the dry, you need the wet, you need the cold, you need the warm. All of those things help us to understand and appreciate and get to grips with what reality is, or our perceived reality in this lifetime.
So what are these negative forces? Are they spirit? What are they?
Your question has a complex answer, because you've got energies which have never been human, and these are energies that can be formed from an amalgamation of negative thoughts, negative energy. So somebody being murdered creates a negative footprint. You could have somebody just putting negative thoughts out there. I hate myself. You're a horrible person, blah, blah, blah. You can't destroy energy. Energy just moves on to a different place. When you have all of that energy coming together, think of a war zone, for example. You'd probably find there's an awful lot of, I'll use the D word, there may be a lot of demonic activity in somewhere like a war zone because of the suffering that's going on there, the hatred, all of those really horrible low energy vibrations coming together. So you've got those sort of energies, so they become something that can portray itself in a way that it wants to, so almost like a shapeshifter maybe, so it can change form. You've got people that have been or done negative things when they were on Earth in a human form, and people, let's say, people like murderers, for example. They have been human. Instead of turning to God, they can work for the devil or Satan or whatever you want to call it. It's complicated. There's lots of different things, and then you've got like elemental energy. So this is kind of, I guess this probably goes back to like Celtic or pagan times or something like that. Elemental energies tend to be, and they're not always negative, but things like imps, for example, they are there really to protect the earth, to help the land, to help Mother Nature, but they can be a little bit mischievous almost. So sometimes those things can come across as being negative. They can do negative things, they can trick you. They're not necessarily nasty, but yeah, they can come across that way.
Are you scared yet? Are you terrified? I am really curious to hear what you think of what Jono is saying. I still am not sure where I'm at yet, if I'm honest, but I am looking forward to finding out more. Just the usual podcast admin. If you like what you are hearing, if you have liked the past couple of episodes, I would really appreciate some support by either following me, liking it, subscribing, whatever it is you feel you are able to do. I would really appreciate it. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok, although you won't find me twerking on it, thank goodness, at the.psychic.explorer. So find me there. And I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear what you think. If you can think of any improvements I might make, I'm open to it. So without me blabbering on anymore, let's get back to Jono and his paranormal investigations. Okay, Jono, let's go back to the mechanics of this paranormal investigating then. Do you think that science can ultimately explain paranormal activity? Or are there some things that are just beyond measurement?
I mean, science is, well, the technology that we're able to access now in paranormal investigations is certainly improving. I mean, when I first started, we'd go out with a thermometer, a dictaphone, and probably an EMF meter, and that was pretty much it. And even those things you had to pay a bit of money for. Nowadays, you've got all sorts of equipment. You've got Frank's boxes, which scan radio frequencies in a particular manner so that they kind of almost generate white noise. And, you can hear live interactions with ghosts. So I don't think it can. I think you need somebody who is able to communicate with them, i.e. a medium, and using the information that a medium can pick up, as well as kind of the scientific stuff, so that you can, because obviously science is a man-made way of, I guess, testing natural things, isn't it?
Mm.
So no, I don't think it can ultimately prove the paranormal, but I think it will help certain people understand it in a better way, people that may not be using their gifts, if that would make sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I always wonder, like, given science enough time, it's going to be able to explain everything. But
some stuff, though, we're just not meant to know. It would not serve a purpose for us to know or understand that in this lifetime. Obviously, the theory is that when we go back home, when we cross over, when we die, we would know. We would have that knowing and that knowledge. So we don't necessarily. That's why we would forget it when we're, coming back here to have this physical experience, because we don't need to know those things.
so you were talking about EMS there and Frank boxes, which are not underwear, because even straight away I was like,
do you say
Frank's
underwear?
Yeah, like Frank's boxes. In my head, it was some bloke called Frank in his underwear.
I just got what you were saying.
What role did those tools have in your investigations? I know you've explained a little bit about the Frank's boxes, but how do you use them to ensure that you approach spirits respectfully?
I mean, these are really important things because we're looking to build up a picture of the evidence. Any evidence that we're able to collect, we want to be able to say that we've used this particular device, which is a trusted and known piece of equipment. We want to use that alongside any information that we've gotten from one of the mediums, or the psychic mediums there that we've got. I guess we want to know that if we're going to go back to that location and we've found a particular piece of information, can that be replicated? Because if it can, there's a reason that it can be replicated because it's paranormal, or is it for some other reason? So it just gives you a good basis to start from. In terms of respect, I mean, you have got to show respect. If you think about it, if you walked into, let's say you walked into a social club, okay, you've never been there before, it's in a part of England or a part of the world that you've never been to before in your life, you don't know the culture, you don't know the people. If you walked in there and started shouting and screaming at them, what do you think the response is going to be? They're either going to tell you to go away, or they're going to hide and run. And the whole point of doing this is that we're there to communicate, we're there to be respectful, and showing love, showing kindness, showing respect, speaking to them in a way that you would want to be spoken to if you were a spirit, or even as a normal person, you tend to get better results.
As you're talking, I'm really making myself question things that regular listeners will know, that I listen to podcasts all day, every day, about all sorts of things. And a lot of the things that I have heard about this sort of stuff so far, or, afterlife, is full of love. It's very light. It's very, it's all about going back home. It's about becoming almost all-knowing, omnipotent almost. You're talking about these spirits, these people who have not moved on, but you're talking about them. I mean, again, when I say this, Jono, I mean this with respect to you, but I'm just conscious of how it might sound. But you're talking about them as if they still are in their mindset of when they're in the living body. And I guess in my head, when you die, from what I have heard, and again, I don't know, I've not experienced it yet, not this time around anyway, but once you leave your body, you're sort of, I guess you would say some of them don't always go back home because they are stuck here. I guess with that, does that mean that they are also stuck with their mindset of their humanness?
I think that is the case, yeah, because they haven't transitioned, they haven't gone back home, they haven't then had that life review where they can experience what they put upon people, understand how that made those people feel. They haven't had that kind of moment to reflect. So although they're not in a physical body, they still feel that they are. So they're still living that life. They just don't necessarily know that they're not in the physical world. But also it's complicated because they may choose to not want to go back because they don't want to fess up to things. They don't want to hit that head on, even though they know they're not in their body anymore. But I still think, based on what I've kind of experienced, that they still have that kind of that mindset, if that makes sense. It's complicated. There isn't an answer there isn't an all-encompassing answer, because obviously these things will depend on the individual.
And that's the other thing. These things that we're talking about are fairly subjective. We were saying earlier on that you have your point of view. Somebody else listening to this will have their point of view.
Absolutely.
And I guess we won't know until we get there ourselves. But what you're saying actually makes a lot... And thank you for bearing with me. I know that I sound like I'm a right div with this sort of stuff, but I'm literally just sort of thinking out loud, because sometimes it takes me to talk to someone like you who has plenty of experience with this world or with this sort of thing, to make me think, oh, okay, maybe it doesn't work quite like I was thinking. Maybe there's another element. And actually, when you're explaining that explains it to me and makes it make much more sense to me.
It's just not black and white. That's the problem. So I can give you an example of something, but, that's not necessarily the case each and every time. And this is why we like to use the equipment, because it builds up a picture scientifically, but also it might back up something that a psychic is picking up, or also the psychic might pick something up that the equipment isn't able to. So it gives you a broader perspective, but there isn't just that's black and that's white and that's yellow and that's red. It is incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
Really, for you, Matt, you need to experience a paranormal investigation to be able to start to understand it.
Well, buckle up, listeners, because there might be something coming up. Let's get back to the questions, though, before I tease that some more to the dear listeners. We are recording this this is going out in October. This is our Halloween. This is my Halloween editions. Halloween is said to be the time of year when the veil, whatever that means, is thinner. What are your personal beliefs around this season?
There are a number of different beliefs regarding Halloween. I think the pagans or Celtics believed or celebrated that as I think it was the Samhain festival, which marked the end of harvest and the beginning of winter. Personally, I'm more aligned with a spiritualist belief in that the veil becomes thinner between this world and the next. But I just love the kind of the Americanism, the celebration, the spookiness, the parties, all the decorations, watching a scary movie with friends. That's what I like. But yeah, for me, it's like it is a time where you could do a paranormal investigation and probably have quite a lot of activity. Having said that, it can also be a great time to do a paranormal investigation if you've got a full moon, because the energies are stronger. So yeah, that's my belief. It's the veil is thinner, potential to interact with a vaster spectrum of spirits, because I guess also the ambience around Halloween is that it is spooky and frightening. Your senses are heightened as well. So yeah, it's a great time to get out there and investigate.
Well, on that note, I am actually going to be doing an investigation with your good friend Jules, and she has agreed for me to come along and record a paranormal investigation. So that will be going out in December. Listen up for that, guys, because I'm really looking forward to that, and we'll have a chat with Jules as well after that to sort of analyse what happened. And Jono, I think you're going to be there as a sort of a silent partner. You're going to be the one in the background doing the technical stuff, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing some technical stuff on that investigation. I mean, if I pick up psychically, then obviously I'll use that information to assist the investigation. But yeah, you're going to be dealing mainly with the oracle that is Jules Bailey. So you're in very safe hands with her.
Looking forward to it. I've not done anything like this before in my life, so I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so, so much, Jono. I feel like I have learned a heck of a lot. You said some things earlier on which didn't necessarily resonate with me originally, but actually the more I sit with it, the more it sort of makes sense. So thank you for giving me your point of view. And again, I urge anyone who has questions about this sort of thing to ask questions, to take in as much information as you can, and based on your own experiences, go forward with that, with make your opinion with the experiences that you have. Okay, before I let you go, Jono, I've got a few quick fire questions for you. I've not sent these to you, so these are off the cuff.
Okay.
Sorry to string this on you. It's Halloween. What is your favourite horror or Halloween film?
Do you know what? I really like the Poltergeist franchise.
Yeah.
And the reason I love that, I mean, I love Stephen King stuff, but the reason I particularly love that one is because when I'm watching that film, all the ghosts are coming in, all the spirits are starting to come in, you know, everything on me is tingling. I can feel the energy in the room. So that for me is a great film because they're in the room with me, you know.
They're here. Literally. If you could invite 3 spirits, ghosts, or historical figures to join you for a Halloween seance, who would you pick?
Ooh, I would pick Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm. Keep it light.
Keep it light, yeah. I would also probably pick, for Halloween, crikey. Oh, God, you do throw these tricky questions at me. I would also pick, I think it was Leslie Nielsen. Is it Leslie Nielsen from the Naked Gun films?
Yes, Leslie Nielsen, brilliant. I love that.
Because he's funny. And I'd probably throw in a wild card, George Michael.
Oh, classic.
Because I love George Michael.
You know what? You do give George Michael vibes with your beard, actually.
I'm growing it at the moment because I'm going bald, so I'm moving from the top to the bottom.
Right, third quick fire question, and final one. You'll be happy to hear this final one. If you could ask the spirit world one single question and be guaranteed a clear answer, what would you ask?
When am I going to win the lottery? No, I'm joking. I would ask, what is the meaning of life? Although I think I know that the answer to that, but that's probably what I would ask.
Very good. Thank you, Jono. Where can people find you? I know that you have another podcast. You have a podcast with your friend Rob Morgan called The Psychic Unplugged, which has just launched. And I listened to that yesterday. It's very good, by the way.
Thank you.
So what's the plan around that one then?
Yeah, so Rob is a really, really close friend of mine, and again, he's a psychic. He's a psychic. He's a scientist at heart. He's a high band in the NHS. You know, very scientifically minded, very kind of practical person. But he is really interested in, I guess, spirits, paranormal stuff, that kind of thing. I went to visit him. I mean, he's known about what I've done for forever, but I went to see him. He lives in Bristol. Went to see him in December last year, and I had the feeling that he is a really good medium. He just doesn't know it yet. And so I did some mediumship with them. They had a friend over, and I got Rob to tune in and pick up on a random spirit that needed our help. Again, bit of a rescue actually, and he was able, with my guidance, to do mediumship to do this. So that sparked his interest, and he contacted me and he said, "Look, I've got loads of questions about being psychic, ghosts, doing mediumship, healing, all of that stuff. It really fascinates me. but I want to do it from a layman's point of view. So that's what it is. So Rob is the layman. He's asking me as many questions as he can in this series, and I'm just going to answer them as best as I can, I guess, from my point of view. As I said earlier, I'm not the expert on any of these things, but I just speak from my experience, how I see things, and you know, from that, hopefully, it will inspire others to jump in and start their own journey.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jono. Really happy to have you on this episode of the Psychic Explorer, my first boy guest for my year anniversary episode. Thank you very much, Jono.
Thank you, Matt.
The very spooky Jono Angelo with his explanations on paranormal investigations and negative energies. Thank you so much, Jono. I really appreciated his insight in that episode. Like I said, there's still some stuff which I'm not sure about just because I personally haven't experienced it. But as I said in that interview, I sort of sit on the fence. I'm not going to put my toe fully in yes, it does, and I'm not going to put my toe in the no, it definitely doesn't until I have experienced it. So we shall see if this paranormal investigation that I will be participating in reveals anything. I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to this. I have been re-listening to my favourite spooky podcast to try and just get myself in the mind frame of an investigation, of seeing or feeling or, I don't know, sensing something on that investigation. There might be absolutely nothing, and that is absolutely fine. But whatever we get, I will bring it to you. That is going to be the winter solstice edition. So look out for that in December. I cannot wait to bring that to you. And of course, I will be having a chat with Jules Bailey, who will be conducting, facilitating, I guess, the paranormal investigation that I'll be on. So yeah, just cannot wait. Looking forward to that. Right, this episode has gone over the 60-minute mark, so I want to keep this very, very brief. I just want to say thank you to you. If you have been listening this whole time, since I started back in October last year, just thank you for your support. The occasional comments I get through, the occasional follows I get through, honestly, each and every one of them means the world to me. You will remember from my episode 2, Red Car, Yellow Car, brackets validation, where yes, I overused the word validation ever so slightly, but I do enjoy validation, and I put the episode for Scotland together, and it took so long, and I really got in my head when I put that online. I was thinking, is it worth it? If I'm going to level with you guys, and you know, this podcast is all about being honest, my listenership is quite low to the point where I was thinking, is this even worth it? Like the time and the effort that I put into producing these episodes, I was really considering just stopping because I was just thinking, is it even worth the time and effort? I've always put these episodes out with the mind frame of whoever needs these is going to find them. And I'm not comparing myself to other very successful podcasts. I'm not trying to compare myself to other people who might fly with this sort of thing, who it might even come really naturally to. I'm trying not to compare myself to them, but it is hard. And a comparison is a thief of joy. And I was really feeling that theft of my joy when I put that last episode out for Scotland. And just as and it's so weird how these things work, because I felt it a few times where I thought, is it worth it? I don't think it's worth it. And every time I felt that pang of disappointment, I guess, someone messaged me. I had a couple of messages come through, and each of those messages to those people, one of them, you know who you are, because we had a bit of a back and forth about this, but just want to say thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for reaching out and telling me that these episodes make a difference to your days. It just warms my heart beyond measure. I cannot tell you how much that means to me. And it just validates that I am putting these episodes out for the right reason. Those people who need it will find it. So, on that note, I will leave it be because this episode has gone on way too much. However, my goodness me, I am rubbing my hands and I cannot wait for the next episode. Jono is rejoining me to listen to your ghost stories, the stories that you have sent in, my wonderful dear listeners. You have so very generously sent me some of your stories, and Jono and I are going to listen to these live and we're going to discuss them. Uncanny style, so cannot wait for that. I'm going to love you and leave you. I will speak to you in a couple of weeks where we discuss your ghost stories. Love you all. Take care. Bye.